Hey, I'm Raoul. I'm the host of The Journeyman, and this is my podcast. And what this is all about is taking you on my journey at the very nexus of macro, crypto, and technology, where all these megatrends come together. And my role here is actually to just speak to as many of the key people in these spaces as possible to help us all in our journey of understanding. These times are moving fast. They're complicated. It's a confusing world out there. And I'm trying to help us make it a little bit clearer, to feel a little bit more in control. Because out of all of this is massive opportunity. And I want us all to find the opportunities. Now, NFTs have been a space that I've been interested in for a long time. It's one of the kind of mega component parts of crypto. And NFTs have a broad range of use cases. Everything from ticketing to derivative contracts, but really it all came out of art, which was an amazing place for it to start, but that's where it started. It birthed some incredible artists in the space, people like Beeple or Xcopy or Fuckrender and many others. And I've always found this a really interesting start to proving out that an NFT, its real purpose is a smart contract on a blockchain that allows for scarcity. You see, in a digital world, you can make endless amounts of everything. So how can anything hold value? As we move into the metaverse experience that we're headed towards, where all this technology all kind of comes into the same place, we can't have assets that go to zero. We need to protect scarcity. Scarcity is what gives things, scarcity and utility are the two things that give things value here. So scarcity allowed artists to create a new experience. And artists being artists experiment faster than almost anybody else. So we've seen an incredible array of stuff coming out of the NFT space and the artists themselves. So this time, I want to speak to Grant Yuan about what he's doing, because he is a really preeminent artist, incredibly respected, but he didn't come from this background. I mean, he's studying to be a doctor. It's a ludicrous transition that he's made, but he's been incredibly successful. And I love to get in the minds of an artist. What creates their art? Why do they do this? And why does blockchain technology really help them in that? And you see, as time of speaking, which is in September 2023, the NFT market is imploding. It's a lagged asset compared to crypto itself, much like housing lags the economy, or housing lags the stock market. That's maybe the best way of looking at it. And the lag is pretty significant, about 18 months or so before we start to see it. So the crypto markets fell apart in kind of May through to October 2022. And now we're recovering and we're up a significant portion from that as the crypto economy starts turning into springtime, early stage. And NFTs are hitting their lows, and that's typical. But there's going to be opportunities to buy NFTs. Now, it becomes very hard to choose what you buy because there's so many of these projects will go to zero, as many, many things do. But art, if you find the right artist, you've probably got a higher probability. So that's why I'm really interested in this space as well from an investment perspective. So it's the knowledge learning perspective and the investment perspective. And again, I know there's a lot always to take in because there's so many confluences of ideas and thoughts and developments all happening. And it's something we do have to keep on top of. The other thing you have to think about is, with this much going on, how do you find life balance in all of this? And that's something I'm even struggling with right now. We've got so much going on at Real Vision as we're building out our new platform with incredible new features. I've been retooling the global macro investor experience. We've been retooling exponential age asset management. So we've got the world's preeminent asset management firm, all sorts of things. And it becomes overwhelming. And then I'm trying to learn what's going on and stay on top of these megatrends, macro, crypto technology. And it kind of hurts your brain. So what I try and do is I find that nature's one of the things. It's easy to use a wine bottle, and I do use that. from time to time. I'm a big fan of wine. I'm sure I'll talk a lot more about wine in this series. But also, we got to find nature. We got to find nature, touch grass, as people say in the crypto industry, because it has this calming effect. And really, if you want to actually think, don't try and think. The best thing is absorb information and then take yourself out into nature, go for a walk. Go for a walk, and what happens is ideas pop into your head. When you don't spend time thinking is when you do your best thinking. So try and do that. Spend less time thinking and allow the thoughts to come to you. Just get the quality information, follow my journey, follow the other journeys on Real Vision, and you'll find that suddenly it'll all come together. Anyway, let's get to my interview with Grant, see what he has to say. Join me, Raoul, as I go on a journey of discovery through the macro, crypto, and exponential age landscapes. In The Journeyman, I talk to the smartest people in the world so we can all become smarter together. Grant, fantastic to get you on Real Vision.
Thanks for having me.
Listen, this is going to be fun because you've got a great story from as far as I understand it, breakdancer to medical student to a very highly regarded artist in the space. It's kind of must be head spinning for you. But let's start from the beginning. Talk me through this breakdancing business?
Yeah, I started in middle school, just kind of in gym class with a bunch of people. Um, but it was something I never let go of. And when I went into college, I think I wanted to identify with a group of people, as young adults do. And that was just kind of a category of my life that I wanted to really explore. And so I've always been a huge fan of like funk music and kind of like um, jazz and blues. And so I think all of it just culminated to me wanting to explore this art form.
So was
And so
it
I
the
just,
music or
yeah,
the dancing or the combo, the mix between it?
it's a combo. I think a lot of people
And the
kind of
culture as well, I
assume.
guess.
Yeah, yeah, the culture as well. I think a lot of people assume like um, a lot of breakdancing, you're dancing to kind of like hip hop music, but in reality, what it is kind of like hip hop dance emerged in parallel with the music, and so the foundation of it really is focused on kind of like funk and blues and kind of that era of music, and I think that along with classic rock is something I grew up on as a kid. And so it was just a match made in heaven for me. And there's, a competitive aspect of me. And I try my best to tell myself I'm not a type A person, but I think over the years it's become pretty clear I am a type A person.
And look, the really important question is, which is the best Stevie Wonder album, if we're going to talk funk? Or are you
Which is
more
the
Sly
what?
and the Family? The best Stevie Wonder album.
The best Stevie Wonder album is the one with the golden lady on it. It's called Inversions. I can't remember actually.
Innovisions.
Innovations. There you go. Yeah, I think that's the one that has golden lady on it.
Yeah,
And yeah, yeah. That's
I'm with you.
but
Yeah,
all of them.
I'm a
Every
huge
single
funk
one.
fan as well. All of it. I just love music, and you know, I was blown away. I grew up when I was kind of teenager. It was Grandmaster Flash, and the whole start of the whole hip hop movement and breakdancing became huge over that period. And it's just fascinating that you got into it, and you kind of when you went to school, you treated it like like some people would do a sport. So it's the way of making friends, building a culture, a community where you've got a commonality of interest, right? Which comes up later, I guess, in NFTs, which we'll get to in some thing. But did you find that it helped you find your kind of crowd?
Yeah, I think it did. I think there's kind of a crowd of people I hang out with in academia just because I've been in it for so long, and maybe, some people in the art community as well. But whenever I go and meet people in the dance community, it's extremely lighthearted and people kind of express themselves extremely honestly, and that's something I really appreciate about that group of people. And yeah, yeah.
So then you went to med school, is that right?
Yeah,
What's
I
the journey here?
so I graduated from the University of Wisconsin in Madison 2018, I believe, and then I spent a couple years applying to medical school, kind of just working as a freelance artist, and then got accepted to the Medical College of Wisconsin, which is about an hour away. And I've just been here since. So it's been about 3.5 years here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
So talk me through the artist journey then, because you mentioned, oh, I was freelancing as an artist. You just kind of dropped that in there. So when did you start in art, and how did you get your involvement in art?
Yeah, so my mom and my aunt, who both helped raise me, they have their masters in art from Seoul, South Korea, and they both worked as art teachers basically as I grew up. And my dad was a electrical mechanical engineer, which is why I was in the Bay Area at the time. And so just I think between my dad bringing home these intricate diagrams of whatever he was doing at work and seeing my other family members, do art and teach art, I think really kind of inspired me consciously, but I would say subconsciously as well. And I took it to heart. And when I went into college, I did my best to try and just pick up digital art. So I first started, I talk about the story a lot, but I actually started doing digital illustrations on PowerPoint because I didn't know of any other like medium through which I could do digital art. So I would just stack the shapes tool in PowerPoint. Um, and it worked out for a couple of years. And then I was like, oh, I should move over to more dedicated illustrating software. And so I picked up Adobe Illustrator. But I built a foundation up from illustrating in that style, so I still use it to this day. And it's really from there, it's just been kind of a journey of kind of improving and grinding.
So were you ever kind of somebody who painted or sketched, or are you just digitally native? That was just the way you figured art out for yourself.
No, I think early on in college, I did my best to try to explore a ton of mediums. So I did a lot of painting, whether it was oil, acrylic, or spray paint. And then I have like books and books of just illustrations I've done in pencil and marker, etc. I think the reason I stuck with digital is because when I first started, my mindset was I wanted to distribute my art as much as possible. I never had this intention of wanting to make as much money or anything like that. My whole goal as an artist, because I was trying to do this on the side, was really just I wanted to share my art with as many people as possible, and I found that digital was the best way to do that.
And did you start in something like DeviantArt, or what platform? How did you start sharing it? Or
Yeah,
was
I
it
actually
straight?
started. No, no, I started sharing on Reddit actually, and I think a lot of
Oh,
people picked up on my art through Reddit, and that's how actually I got most of my commission work early on. I just did my best to just spam it through like all the subreddits, and sometimes it would like make it to the front page of Reddit for a few days, and those were the days I would get a lot of commission work, and so that's kind of the way I really worked my way up the ladder.
so talk me through the crypto journey and how NFTs. Talk me through that whole journey.
Yeah, so kind of working my way up the ladder through Reddit, I always thought I had the potential just just mentally to become an artist who is recognized in fine art. But as a digital artist, it's extremely difficult to go through that journey, and no one really, I at the time didn't know how to do that, and especially because I didn't study art, I was studying biochemistry. I just had no guidance, and so what I did was I would just submit my art to, galleries or online magazines or just anything I could find. I would sit down with this huge spreadsheet every other week and I would just submit. I would just submit away, um, are there opportunities for this and that with my art? Um, and one of those opportunities that I came across was just a super rare link. I was I was into crypto, but I didn't really know or care for what NFTs were at the time. And this was, I'd say November, December of 2020. And so I was I found the super rare link. They said you have to submit this video of yourself talking about why you like NFTs, and then to submit your portfolio. And so I try to learn like in 30 seconds about what NFTs were. I kind of just lied myself, through the video saying I was, super into NFTs, and then I just submitted it. I completely forgot about it for a couple months, and then randomly one day I got this email saying I was accepted to Super Rare. So I remember that day I learned like what MetaMask was, and I learned about like what these tokens were. And then that was really the start of my journey, really.
Hey, sorry to interrupt again. It's Raoul here from Real Vision. I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel, get the notifications. We have so many incredible conversations with so many amazing people. It will really help you in your financial journey and your journey to understand just what the hell's going on in this world. Anyway, click subscribe, get the notifications, and enjoy. And so, what happened with Super Rare? What was the first thing that you published or minted? How did it work?
Yeah, so it's a funny story because the 2 or 3 days before I minted or I got accepted to Super Rare, 2 or 3 days before, I like gave away my seed phrase. On like yeah, it was a total disaster. I had like lost all my money. I had like no money left in my bank account, and at the time the gas fees were like 200 or something, and like $200 to mint something. And so I barely had any money, and I was like, this is just a leap of faith that I'm gonna take. And so I minted one of the illustrations I had, and and then I remember like a few hours later I get this offer for like point 0.2 or point 0.4 ETH, and I'm like, should I take it, or maybe it can go higher? So I wait, and then they withdraw their offer. And then I'm like, oh no, maybe I won't ever sell anything. And then eventually, I can't remember the exact ETH amount, but it was like $700, and that was the first thing I ever sold on Super Rare.
How did it make you feel?
So I guess I'd like to preface this by saying at the time I did understand what NFTs were. I mean, I learned very quickly, but I understood that this is a digital asset that's been tokenized, and it's a very unique one of one. And there's like a kind of a gentleman's agreement that I probably won't mint this particular piece of art again, right? Um, so it felt at the time, it felt like I was part of something so novel, um, but also part of a movement and something that gave me this idea that I could achieve something more with my art as a digital artist. I didn't, I wasn't too akin to any of the communities on Twitter at the time, but just like peripherally looking into all the super rare artists that were selling things, I felt like I was part of a movement, and part of something special because, as someone who is in their mid to late 20s now, um, I think I'm part of a digitally native generation, and in being part of that, NFTs just made sense to me, and I think I just felt like there was a lot to be done, and I was kind of at the beginning of it. Whether I'm going to be considered a pioneer, 30 years from now. I mean, that's for people in the future to say, but I definitely felt like I was part of something special.
Were you a gamer? So did you understand digital assets in different ways? Or was
Yeah,
it just the art element? So you were a gamer.
yeah, yeah. I played games throughout my childhood, and then in recent years, it's really been about StarCraft and Counter-Strike. But even in a little bit of League and stuff like that. But like the idea of skins and kind of um, closed tokenized economies that these video game manufacturers have, they just make complete sense to me. And so just converting that idea to a more decentralized, a more public economy of tokens, it was just something that I think when I learned about it blew my mind, but also was something that I wanted to actively be a part of.
Well, we'll get into philosophizing about NFTs in a bit and where this is all going. But talk me through the journey of your art, because there's you suddenly. You're at med school. You're super rare. You mint your first thing, $700. Next minute, Christie's or Sotheby's. I mean,
Yeah.
what the hell happened? Tell me that story of your first mint through to suddenly you're one of the most renowned artists in the space.
Yeah. So I kind of from that February of 2021, for the next few months, I was selling things between zero point 0.5 to 1 ETH, maybe on a lucky day, 2 ETH. And then a couple things happened that really kind of defined the trajectory that I would take in the years to come. And one of those was the person that actually accepted me to Super Rare. He reached out to me on Twitter one day and he told me that a lot of collectors were interested in my art, but I was minting a lot of different styles, and so it was kind of difficult for the collectors to understand or to they just didn't know what to expect the next thing I minted. And the moment he said that, like that, literally that moment, I read that text. I knew what style I wanted to pick, and that's the one that I've been running with thus far. And that's because that's the one that I identify with most. I think it's the one that I've been exploring the most and the one that speaks to me personally. And then, so from that point on, I can't remember exactly what date that was, but sometime in 2021, he told me that. And from there, I was minting a particular style, which is the one I have today. And then I would say sometime between June and August of 2021, a couple collectors, one day I woke up and a couple collectors had swept my floor. Just they bought all the the unsold pieces that I had minted. So it was Anonymous, Tappy, and I believe a couple others. And so it was just like 4 or 5 ETH of sales. But in that moment, I knew that Twitter was actually an extremely important vehicle for artists in the NFT space. And prior to that, I had no real engagement on Twitter. I just kind of posted something, forgot about it, went to Instagram or went to another social media platform. Um, but in that moment, I think I realized that Twitter was actually very integral to communicating with collectors and other artists and communities. And so ever since then, I've been doing my best to not only support other artists, whether it's financially or just with the voice that I have, but also communicating with collectors. And I approach NFTs the exact same way I approached my art journey before that. I was talking about going through these spreadsheets and applying to things and doing this and that. Um, Very similarly, I still continue to, reach out to companies and reach out to collaborators, potential collaborators, if there's any opportunities, because at the end of the day, it never really hurts to ask if you're interested in something, right? And so a lot of the opportunities I found were just by simply asking. And the worst that could happen is you get ignored or you get rejected. And, there's really no harm in that.
So, why did you settle on the style you did? It's very unique. It's kind of a very beautiful, simple but not simple style. Why why that style and where were the influences in that?
Yeah, so when I attended the University of Wisconsin actually has a world-class art collection at the museum called the Chase and Art Museum. It's attached to the art building there, and it's a public free museum for everyone. And so I would go there every, I don't know, at least like once a month, a couple times a month. Um, and there'd be so many amazing pieces. One that stuck out to me was Ed Ruscha's Standard Station, which is, one of his most iconic pieces. And I would stare at it and try to appreciate what the meaning of that work was. I think without an art education, formal art education, I just did my best to try to learn about the artists in that museum. And so I did my best to kind of replicate that style, except in the way that I knew and with the kind of the technical restrictions from, using PowerPoint. And so the combination of those two things kind of resulted in something that was uniquely my own. And then one year I went to the Whitney Art Museum down in the financial, is it in the financial district or Soho? I can't remember at this point. Um, but downtown New York, and there was a kind of a retrospective Grant Wood exhibition there, and I think that's the moment that it really like was an eye opener for me, where what looking at his style and how he approached art and what he wanted to convey through his art was really something that I wanted to incorporate with my own practice. And so I went home after kind of going to that exhibition and I started to create some of the pieces that I did. And the first one is called, after kind of that whole experience, the first piece I created was called Midwest, which was actually the piece that was sold at Christie's earlier this year. And that was a piece that actually got me to the front page of Reddit that after I uploaded it to Reddit, and kind of got me more jobs and, as a freelance artist, and also kind of motivated me to create a series on my own personal reflections of living in Wisconsin, coming from California. And so ever since then, it's kind of been exploring the medium that I would use, and also my own kind of my own personal experiences in my life.
So how do you adapt from here? Because you don't, you're an artist. You don't want to be stuck in the same thing, even though it's successful and you have collectors and they like it, and you're getting all the confirmations. But an artist at some point has to take risk again and get outside their comfort zone. How do you do that?
Yeah, I feel like our conversation is about to get a little bit more esoteric, but the way I think about this is NFTs, beyond the kind of the financial freedom that I've obtained, to a certain extent, and some other artists as well, from a strictly art perspective, what I would have to say is being in NFTs gives you the opportunity to have a possibility in a career in art, for a career in art. There is no guarantee. And I think I say this because there are very few players who are coming from contemporary art spheres who are interested in NFTs. A lot of it is people, a lot of it are companies and entities that are crypto native. And so it's a sustainable, to an extent, it's a sustainable ecosystem for artists who want to be creating NFTs. But to branch out, there's really no guarantee. And as you mentioned, this is a risk that I have to take if I want to do something that's beyond kind of in the crypto native spaces. And so really it's about doing the exact same thing. I view myself as someone who has achieved some noise in the art world. Sorry, very minimal noise, but at least has the door open to try and make an attempt at a career in art. And so I'm going to do this. I mean, I don't want to give too many details because I'm working on things behind the scenes, but I'm going to approach this opportunity with the same mentality of, I'm at the bottom of the ecosystem here. And sure, I have this experience in digital art, but how am I going to translate it to the world of contemporary art, where there are more established artists and there are people that know significantly more than I do, who have had more experiences than I've had. Um, and so it's really just building the foundation from the bottom up.
Yeah, look, I think it's interesting because I do think all of the mediums are kind of coming together. So, we've certainly seen Damien Hirst go from one to the other. Beeple go from the other back to the other. Beeple's now doing physical kind of objects like Damien Hirst had done with the shock and the formaldehyde. And we're seeing, and then we had the explosion of generative art, right? This is now giving it over to the AI. It feels like there is a Cambrian movement that's going on in art in a broader sense, that this is all enabled. Technology's enabled art in a way that maybe photographs and Photoshop and stuff did, but this feels big.
Yeah, I tend to agree, but at the same time, sometimes I think about the exact conversations we're having, and I think to myself, you know, this is someone, I am someone who is tunnel visioned because I spend all day on Twitter in spaces that are crypto native. I think it's important to get the opinions of people who are on the other side, in more kind of traditional established spaces in art, and seeing what their opinions are. And I think there are a lot of people, I know for a fact there are a lot of people in museums and auction houses and galleries who are interested in what we're doing. But I just think that there just needs to be more development to happen and more collaborative efforts to occur, for myself to feel like I am genuinely part of an art movement. And I think part of that is up to me. Like that there is a set of responsibilities that I have to uphold as well to make sure that we as a digitally like native movement are able to be accepted into contemporary art world.
Yeah, because if you're going to be at the forefront of a movement, you have to make the movement. Um, there is no way, and there's, I mean, what is the size of kind of globally respected artists in NFTs? It's still small. Yes, there's been some real breakout successes, and that's amazing to see. But it's very early days. It's like, rock and roll music just being invented. You now got to get it broader acceptance within the global art scene, but just more public awareness. People don't really understand what NFTs even are yet. They're like, well, it's the right click save argument, right?
Yeah, I will say it is reassuring to know that a lot of like the space is definitely self-sufficient in the sense that collectors most collectors are NFT native, right? Or digitally native, crypto native. And so um, we can technically exist, in my opinion, without the validation from the art world. It would just be nice if that were to occur. And, I am hopeful
But
because
you
the
kind
more
of
I learn
shouldn't
about,
want the valid. If you want to be a rebel and you want to be at the forefront, you kind of don't want the validation. They will come and validate you because,
e-
and not.
exactly, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a poor choice of words. But the more I learn about kind of more I learn about art in general. I mean, it's always about trying to question the foundations of the incumbent, right? And so it's now is kind of trying to see how generative art, how NFTs, how AI art is gonna question what defines art and what makes art special in reference to the traditional art world. And I think it'll take time, and I think it'll take a lot of innovation and just strength from this community.
And the other thing that's about to happen, 6529 has spoken about it a bit, is we're about to go into 3D in the AR space, right? We've got a whole new medium that's never existed before, another new medium that's about to come onto
Yeah.
the world, and it's happening already.
Yeah, I think NFTs as tokenized assets are an inevitability, as long as there's a use case to have decentralized tokenized assets. I mean, tokenized assets exist today within closed ecosystems, but you know, having but I think there is definitely a use case to have them kind of on decentralized platforms like Ethereum and other L1s and L2s. Um, but yeah, I think running in parallel with technological innovations like AR and VR, I think are just going to further increase the rate of adoption once kind of that threshold is met. And I don't know when that'll be, and I don't know how that will occur, but I think it just is an inevitability.
How do you deal with living your life in a different currency than your bills? The bills that you pay are in dollars. The income you receive is in ETH, which is a very volatile currency. How do you deal with that? Because that's a whole subset that I was speaking to Fuckrender about this and a few others. They're like, nobody taught us this. Nobody taught us that we're actually got foreign exchange risk and stuff like that. It's complicated.
I, the way I see it is I'm an adult. Um, I have to follow the law and I have to pay my taxes. And as an adult, I should accept the risks of getting paid in whatever currency. And it's up to me to make semi-smart financial decisions. And I think that's about it. I think
Yeah, it is hard though, because,
it is what it
what
is.
seems like
Yeah.
a financial decision is suddenly 85% on wrong side and then it's 10x upside. It's just very difficult to plan a life around it if your primary source of income comes from a different currency.
Yeah. It is really strange to think that like the the prices of my works can fluctuate fivefold depending on the price of ETH that day. Which is just growing up, growing up. I mean, starting my quote unquote career in art in NFTs, that has just been my norm. I feel for people who have spent decades working in USD and then suddenly they sell NFTs. And those are the people I really feel for.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like your parents and the relatives from Korea had to deal with the Asian crisis in 1997. It's all amazing, and then suddenly the currencies fall 75%, and just yeah. But I guess you're used to it now. But a lot of people struggle with it because some people just they're not thinking about economics, but suddenly they realize, oh my god, I need to understand economics as well, how things work.
Yeah, I think the my biggest fear, honestly, is legislation. At kind of on an ETH level, like on a protocol level, but also like on an individual level. Whether it's like
Really?
taxes and
Oh yeah,
whatever
tax
other
is a
rules there
nightmare.
are.
It's a nightmare in the
Yeah.
US.
Um, but it is what it is. I mean, it's just something that I have like those are the risks that you just have to take if you want to be part of something special.
So, where do you think the space is going? Um, the NFT space overall. So let's get outside of art now, and let's just think about, okay, we've got this new technology. It's a smart contract that we can do stuff with. What would you think about? Because you know, there's I think there's all sorts of other use cases that will only bring in. So if you think about the ETH, let's use ETH for now, or the crypto economy. Let's use the crypto economy to bring people into the crypto economy where they buy assets, they buy art because they've done well in the ETH economy. That's how art works always, right? You do well, you store some of your savings in art. It's an asset, but you need to bring people in. I look at stuff like ticketing and think that's an obvious area where tickets come in. I think music. I don't know. Are you thinking through other stuff where this might go?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would like to say is when I think about like these ideas, it really comes down to establishing, for lack of a better word, like hegemony within uh, all the protocols. And I think obviously the best and most prominent L1 is Ethereum today. And as long as that remains the case moving forward, and then whatever L2s exist on top of that, um, I think the first thing that I think about is like what foundation are these tokens being built on? And for the most part, I imagine they'd be built on Ethereum and some L2s on top of that. But if that foundation is shaky, then I think the adoption for NFTs also will come later on. But once something like that has been established, then when I think about tokens and NFTs, I mean, the whole ticketing idea, I think it will happen, but I think there's a lot more use cases for NFTs. The only question is like at what point does the tokenized asset need to work in a decentralized protocol versus a gated ecosystem, right? I mean, we're selling Counter-Strike, like first person shooter skins. I mean, they can operate on their closed video game ecosystems without the need for decentralized protocols to exist, and they work just fine, and they've been working just fine for decades now. And so, the real question I have is what use case is there for these decentralized protocols, for companies to move them over to these protocols. So I think in terms of that, additionally, when I think about like art in general, I've said this a couple times, but I'm pretty set on this prediction that I think all NFTs except for art related NFTs will be considered digital assets in the future, whether that's gaming, whether that's, as we mentioned, tickets or anything that has to do with kind of tokenized assets on blockchain. I think will just be called, digital collectibles or digital assets. But I think people in such niche communities in art will still call these things that are important, like a Fidenza an NFT, and not this is a digital asset. Um, and that's just kind of a random little side note that I had. But I'm pretty set on this idea that NFTs have been grandfathered in as a word in the art world, and I think they will continue to be NFTs in the future.
I think you're right. So, which artist do you look up to in the space?
To be completely honest with you, I really look up to all the generative artists. And recently, I would say a little bit more AI artists as well. I'm still trying to navigate the all the arguments behind AI art, the pros and the cons. But as an artist myself, I mean, I support these artists who are creating AI art, whatever, their practices revolving around AI art, because I think when your favorite art critic and your favorite artist and your favorite art collector are downplaying the importance of AI and the impacts it'll have on the art world, I think there is something special there, and I think there's something that you should be paying attention to. But beyond that, I would say the generative artists really inspire me a lot. I think abstract art, just like abstraction from the in the 1900s, has always inspired me as an artist. And I'd say generative art is kind of a little branching point for abstraction, kind of within the realm of art, and how these generative artists explore abstraction through this manner. I think it's something that's really inspiring and eye-opening to me, and inspires me to approach art in different ways as well.
The other one that really floored me when I saw it, it's almost a complete juxtaposition to your work. Yours is kind of sort of utopian. It's the Midwest, and it's green. It's got cows, and it's nice and it's pleasant, right? It's a green and pleasant land. And the other side of that I found was the Rupa Ernesto's Life in West America, which was the kind of warped photographic art. And it was like the American dream warped. It's like a Hunter S. Thompson novel. I just think there's a lot of really interesting new perspectives that are happening, and it's happening in this space now because art can have value more than it would do if that art was on DeviantArt. Because DeviantArt, there's 70 million users, of which how do you find anything? It's nothing. But now creates value, so that creates attention, and that creates an economy.
I think what I'm about to say might be a little bit premature from just like not having compiled my thoughts properly. But what I want to say is, because AI art gives the opportunity to create an infinite amount of outputs at a speed that's probably unprecedented compared to people who have to manually paint each canvas. Um, I think the importance of AI art will come in the form of curation, right? Life in West America is so special because the artist was able to compile such an impressive and extremely strong uh, set of curated pieces, right, for that collection. And I think each one works in of itself, but then when you look at them all together, and I actually had the opportunity to see some of them at Christie's a few months back, and just seeing them even in person, I think is extremely special. And so I think a lot of AI art and a lot of the noise that AI art will make will come in the form of really good curation from these artists.
The other one that I'm really blown away by, and I was arguing with Bat Soup Yum, part of 6529's team, like, I really think I should buy Rafik, the amazing 3D thing. And he was launching the new one, and everyone's like, I'm not sure what it is. I'm like, I'm sure it's going to be amazing. And I haven't bought it. And they were trading at like 1 ETH, and now they're like 10 ETH or something. And they're probably going up because they're amazing. That was another thing that blew me away, to see that art in MoMA. And even I spoke to somebody who's close with the people at MoMA, and MoMA, like, this completely changed our audience for art. So it's the flip side of what you were saying. They were like, we get a bunch of people come in, they want to go and look at some David Hockney or whatever's on the wall, right? And then this piece came in, and it's this 3D incredible generative art. And they said, we've never been busier.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
when I
they
went
said
there,
you
it
suddenly
was,
realize
yeah,
there's a new audience that's come out of this whole space that never existed.
yeah. I definitely think that AI art is here to stay, and I think the people who are able to create AI art in that fashion, as Rafik does, are going to be pioneers of this art movement of the early 21st century. Because, I mean, just sitting down at the MoMA, every time I go there and I just stare at that canvas, I mean, you can sit there for an hour, and you can sit there for multiple hours. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, I can't sit down at and stare at a Hockney painting for an hour. I mean, I'll learn about it, I'll research it, right? And then the first time I see it, I might take a look at the brush strokes, but I'm not sitting there for 2 hours looking at at a Rothko, but I am sitting there for 2 hours looking at Rafik's work. So yeah, and
No,
I
that's
think
something
that
amazing. The immersiveness of
yeah,
these new mediums is like, it's wild.
yeah, and that kind of brings into question, you know, how how fine art, quote unquote fine art, is going to bridge, the masses basically, if they want to, right? I mean, it is a kind of a gated community, and that's just a reality. But
So here's a interesting story. Guy you probably don't know. There's a friend of mine called Alan Howard. Is a very famous hedge fund manager. Also happens to be one of the largest collectors of NFTs in the world, and one of the biggest investors in digital assets worldwide. I spoke to him. It was sometime in 2021, and he called me up on a Sunday with his very gruff English voice. He's like, his opening line was something like, "They're all fucking idiots." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, and he reeled off a bunch of names, some common friends who are the world's largest contemporary art collectors, ultra famous. And he's like, they don't realize that nobody of the younger generation will buy their Jeff Koons. They might buy their Damien Hirst, but they're not going to buy half of the stuff that these guys have collected that are now worth 50 million, 100 million, $200 million because it's just not culturally relevant. He said the culture has changed so dramatically to this digital culture. I mean, he only buys, well, he set up a large fund, I think it was $100 million or so of just generative art. But that's a really interesting thing to see whether, because we've seen it with old masters. Old masters back in maybe 2002, 3, they fell below the price of contemporary art, apart from the very few. And I don't think it'll ever recover because those people aren't around. And there's something interesting in that switch of buying power, audiences, reminiscing, what's relevant, culturally relevant.
does he by chance own the one of one Dmitry Cherniaks on Super Rare? I
Probably.
I feel like I've heard his name before just from people in Discord, but
Yes.
yeah,
I
but
think he,
anyways, yeah. No, no, I totally agree with that sentiment. I mean, just look at all these people who are quote unquote rich. I mean, who have lots of ETH, right? I mean, they're. I mean, I talk to a lot of collectors and a lot of people who buy NFTs, and for the most part, they're all in on NFTs, and few of them, go out and get into kind of buying contemporary art. But I think there's a new wave of art collectors, and I've been talking about this entire interview, but it is a sustainable market. Kind of this.
well, don't forget, there's 425 million active addresses right now, right? However many people is involved in that, we don't know, right? But anyway, 425, that's a number. It's only going to go to a billion, 2 billion, 3 billion over time. So what you're doing is you're selling scarce, beautiful assets in a very fast-growing economy. If you think about it just in basic economics term, and in a very fast-growing economy, people make wealth, and they want to store their wealth in assets, or they like to show off status. So it's like, if you were more cutthroat than being an artist, you're in a perfect place and time, because there's something else going on, which is not just the culture. There's actually, you're just in the right place in the right time. That right economy is not the United States. It's actually the ETH economy.
the the right economy is the CryptoPunks economy. I feel like that's the at least that's I would put my bets on punks to
I
help
I
move adoption.
I own a punk, so yeah. I own a a smattering of all of this stuff on purpose, just because it's a special moment in time. It's a special moment in time. And look, I was with a friend of mine, Ian Rogers from Ledger, at the Ledger Paris event about a year ago, and I'm sitting with a bunch of artists like Fuck Render and Osef and musicians, finance people, technologists, and we're all sitting around a table. I'm like, this doesn't happen, right? You're one degree of separation from just an extraordinary blend of people that never happens. And I think everybody else walked away thinking, oh my God, fashion people are there as well, big brands. I mean, everybody, this microcosm of the most amazing people, and everybody's one degree of separation. I hit you up on Twitter. So everybody can just chat to each other. It's so magical that you have to think how blessed you are to be at the middle of this. Or we all are.
Yeah, we take a lot of things for granted, but every time I try to step away, I realize that it really is like such a unique moment in history that we're a part of.
So listen, I wish you luck. I can't wait to see where your career evolves. I hope it's not on the medical side, and I hope it's on the art side. But both ways change lives. But one way, you've done something special. You're a special moment in time. It feels like the 1960s all over again, but in a different world, in the technology world. I don't know. I can't really describe it, but there's something special. So anyway, can't wait to see where you go from here. And thanks so much for coming to chat to us.
Thank you for having me. It was really a good time.
Fantastic. So there you go. Another fabulous story. I always love hearing people's crypto journeys because it fascinates me, because so many people come from different angles, from finance, from technology. And here's Raoul, who was a breakdancer at a medical school, but came from an artistic family and discovered NFT art and digital art, and then kind of fell in love with blockchain technology. And I think we will all find our anchor points into this system. Those of you who don't yet understand it, you'll have the light bulb moment. Everybody does, where suddenly you go, oh, I get it now. This is what matters to me. Because not everything matters to everybody. But eventually you'll find out what you're passionate about, and you will also come down that rabbit hole. Anyway, talking of rabbit holes, I'll see you next time where we can go back down the rabbit hole of macro, crypto, and technology.
We hope you enjoyed the video. At Real Vision, we help you understand the complex world of finance, business, and the global economy with in-depth analysis from real experts. Join the revolution at realvision.com.